All right, we're live and recording, and I think we're all good to go. How to compile Java programs into standalone executables. Well, you can't really do a standalone executable too easily, but you can make a runnable jar file, and that's kind of the next best thing, because almost everybody has a runnable Java environment at this point. All right, but we'll get to that. Cool. So welcome everybody to CSE223, and welcome to spring. And it's actually like sunny and blue skies, and getting to be very spring-like out there. So I think we've made it through the worst of this in a lot of ways. Yeah, it is beautiful today, and I am definitely going for a run right after class. All right, so what do we want to do today? I want to go through some administrative stuff and just kind of point out a few things from the syllabus and the important notes and so on. And then start talking a little bit about what this course is and about Java versus C. And then I want to go through your first programming assignment. So your first programming assignment is basically a hello world in Java. It's really just kind of getting everybody to the first step of this quarter. And so I've made it due Wednesday, not because you need 2 days to do it, but just for people who end up adding the class tomorrow or something. But I'm going to give you the code. I'm going to take you through the steps for doing this, and it's really just kind of checking those boxes to make sure you've got the basic setup going. So let me start by bringing up Canvas, and we're going to stick to the command line for the first few weeks of this course. So you'll still be working in some kind of Linux terminal or on your own system if you're running Linux or if you're doing VirtualBox. And then eventually we'll switch over to an IDE, and we're going to use Eclipse for this course, but I have to pin down the details. All right, so be sure to read this. I'm guessing everybody already read this because you're here. So just a few reminders. This is a remote class. It's not technically an online class. So the expectation is that you're coming to class during the class time, which is 2 o'clock to 2:50, Monday through Friday. I do record the lectures and I post those, so technically, if you don't come to class, you can watch the lecture and hear the same things that you would have heard if you were here, but you don't get to participate, you don't get to ask questions, and so on and so forth. So it's really meant to be an interactive class that meets every day at 2 o'clock. Along those lines, a little thing to think about here. Try to stay present during the class. What does this mean? 50 minutes. Yeah, it's not all that long, but it's a long period of time to sit still and listen to somebody talk or watch them write code on paper or type or something like that. It's a challenge, okay? It's a bigger challenge because we're not in a classroom, right? We're in an environment that's filled with distractions and things that demand our attention, and sometimes we have to give in to those other demands, right? If we have children at home who are doing school and need our help, if we have parents who need our help, if we haven't gotten to our laundry and we need to fold clothes, or we need to make food or something. We bring the laptop to the kitchen and we wash dishes while we listen, okay? I understand that. And it happens to all of us, and it happens to me when I have to go to administrative meetings, right? But to whatever degree it's possible, I would like you to try to allocate this time as much as possible to this class, right? And pretend that you're, going in and sitting down in the classroom and this is what you're doing. Right? And even in the classroom, you put your phone below the desk and you check your updates on something and so on. But if you can stay, with the class and actually think about what we're doing and, even better, engage with the class and with the material, ask questions, answer questions, right? You're going to get more out of this. If you plan to, kind of background watch and then on Fridays watch 5 hours of videos to catch up, it's probably not going to work, right? You're going to end up, fast forwarding because you only have an hour, and you're going to try to skip through the videos, and it's just going to make a lot more work for yourself. So, given that it's not always possible, to whatever degree it is possible, try to come to class and allocate this time for class. So you've got the Zoom info because you're here. If this changes, I'll let you know through a Canvas announcement, okay? Which brings up the topic, if you're using Canvas to get announcements, you really want to make sure that Canvas is set to let you know when announcements happen, or changes to assignments or anything else. So go into Canvas, set up the notification page, and ask it to push notifications to you immediately, okay? I'll try really hard not to spam you to death with announcements and changes and so on, but if the Zoom meeting room changes an hour before class and you're set up to get a weekly digest Sunday nights, right, you're going to miss all that class. All right, important change on programming assignments. So for this course, unlike the other courses, you're going to make a single Git repository called CSE222B submissions. And all your submissions will be made through that one repository. So we're not going to do a separate repository for each assignment. You're going to make one repo. You're going to, link a directory of your own to that. You're going to add me as a reporter. And then when you want to submit an assignment, you're going to start your assignment in the subdirectory and just keep, git adding, git commit, git push to push those over. And then at the deadline, I'll download your entire repository, and that will have the latest copy of your work in whatever subdirectory. And that's part of this first programming assignment, is to get that all set up. And so we'll go through how to do this for PAA, but basically you'll get a init in the main directory, you'll git remote add origin to link that to GITLab, and then you'll make a subdirectory and do all your work in there. And we'll go through that step by step in a few minutes. All right, and email, again, best way to reach me, use my direct email. That works a lot better than Canvas email, and it works infinitely better than Linux email. I like Linux email, but it's not like an official channel. No, you're definitely welcome to ask questions. No need to apologize. All right, so send me direct email at Macias. Best way to reach me in a way that I can reply right away. Potential for clutter. Yeah, it is clutter. I cleaned out my inbox at Clark. Finally, you know what it does when you clear it out? It says, you're all done for the day. It's like, I guess if I clear it in the morning, I'm done. I don't know. All right. Syllabus. Not a whole lot in here that I need to talk you through. So you can read this on your own. So reminder that this is an in-person course, but it's done remotely, right? So it's not face-to-face. There's the required text, but it's a free download. I don't assign homework from there in particular, but it's a decent Java reference. Really, any Java reference is going to work for you fine, right? We're not doing cutting-edge Java. We're doing stuff that would work just as well under Java 8 or Java 7 or even older versions. But this is a decent download. It's nicely written. It's got lots of examples, and it talks about object-oriented programming and Java in particular. Yeah, you can still talk to me through Linux email. That's fine. All right, I'll let you read the course outcomes. I can go through these, but they may not mean a whole lot if you don't know about object-oriented programming. But you can refer to these throughout the course, and you should see that we're hitting these things as we go forward. Grading, people are always interested in this. So programming assignments, 30% of your grade. So this will be, your little 10-pointer that's due on Wednesday, but there'll be 5 longer programming assignments, and there may be other assignments that pop up. I've got 3 online quizzes right now. I'll try to put some more of those out as we go forward. Those are just kind of like, along the way, touch them and see if you're up to speed on concepts. You can do them an infinite number of times. It keeps the latest score, I think. Service learning project, you'll wrap that up this quarter. That's worth 10% of your grade. And the final wrap-up will be a document that you'll deliver, right? So a formal report on your entire project, and then a presentation. Does not have to be completely done, but at whatever point you declare, is your stopping point for spring quarter, you'll do a formal report basically summarizing things as they are at that point. And your final presentation, will be wherever your project has gotten to. So you want to think about milestones and deliverables, and think about, what would be a nice target for, the last week of spring quarter to have achieved. If you did not take CSE224 or 222 in particular, send me an email if you have questions about the service learning project, because for you it'll probably only be a 1 quarter project. But there's some links to information on Canvas. But send me an email and we'll talk about what you can do for that. If you were in 222, you started this project in beginning of winter term. So, but yeah, you take it as far as you have, and that'll be the final write-up. And that's the end of your obligation for the SLP. Now, some people will continue working on it in summer. Some people will take it to a university and work on it there. Some people will spend the rest of their lives working on it if it happens to be something that turns out to be your passion. But as far as what you need to turn in for grades and stuff at Clark, this is really the end of the SLP, of that part of it. So that's 10% of your grade. Midterm will be 20, final exam will be 30. So no big surprises there. Awesome, yeah. Yeah, I saw in your presentation at the end of winter that you were thinking about getting a printer so you could make some parts. So that's really cool. 3D printers are awesome. All right, so read through the course policies. If you were here for other courses, we've talked about this. If not, read through this. The punchline here, make sure whatever work you turn in is your own, right? Don't get other people to do your work. Don't get somebody else to take the course for you. Yes, that's an option. No, it's not a good idea. If you look at other code, and I still recommend being really, really careful about looking at code that's not your own, but if you look at other code, just make sure that's not what you're turning in, right? If you look at code to try to understand an algorithm, you still want to write your own code to implement that algorithm that you now understand, right? Are the quizzes going to be similar to the quiz in 222? Yeah, they're all posted. The 3 of them are posted up there right now, and they're just like 5 questions or something. And when we talk about statics, you can take the static quiz and see if you understand statics. They're pretty low key. All right, and you can read the rest of this about computer misuse. Don't hack things. Don't take people's code, stuff like that. Support services. If you're new to Clark, definitely take a look through this. Right. 2 things in particular. 1, accommodations. So the Disability Support Services Office. You can work with them, and we work with them to help students if there's some issue. If you need extended testing time. If we were meeting in person and you needed to test in a low distraction environment, or you needed to sit where your back was to a wall, or you needed to sit in the front row, or you wanted permission to be able to leave a lecture halfway through without permission, and so on. Whatever might be going on, if some kind of accommodation might apply to you, you can talk to DSS or talk to me, and I'll help you talk to them. And there's a huge mechanism for supporting students in that way. The other thing is these college-wide policies. Make sure you read through the non-discrimination policy, and it's pretty common sense and it's pretty basic. This is how we should be acting anyway. So I read through this in 224. I'm not going to read through it today, but make sure you've looked at this and basically treat people well and expect to be treated well. And if there's any issues with this, let me know or let one of your other teachers know. And we'll go from there. All right, so let me go further into detail in this additional course policies. So again, our meetings are you know, remote but live. I put a note on here about cameras, right? So I'm not requiring people to use their cameras, but I kind of think that things will work a little better if more people do use their cameras. Um, Part of what makes it hard to stay present in an online class is this feeling that it's just you and your monitor, you know, and you're just sitting there watching your screen, you know, hour after hour, day after day. Um, it's pretty hard to stay focused and enthusiastic and engaged in that kind of environment. Um, so putting your camera on can help. Being able to see other people in class can help. Um, so it's something to think about and consider trying. Um, and I usually keep my camera on, so although you can't see me right now, because you know. All right, so office hours. ENGRCS.com/schedule lists my office hours, and they're the same as last quarter, 8:45 to 9:45, Monday through Friday. If you need to talk to me and those hours don't work, send me an email and let me know. Discord, there's a server available for the class. You're welcome to join through that link. I don't know if anybody grabbed first post yet or not. It was still open yesterday. But I hop on there sometimes. I do not moderate this channel. So, you know, people have to play nicely. If you're trying to ask me a question in there, make sure you put my name in, and I'll try to hop in periodically. And there's a shameless promotion for another Discord server and chat. So, so that's another resource. So, you know, if it's helpful, take advantage of it. If it's not, don't worry about it. I will not use Discord as an official mechanism. So, like if I'm announcing something important or some kind of change or something, I'll do it through Canvas or I'll do it in class, right? But Discord can be useful, especially for talking to other people, kicking around ideas, things like that. Course preparation, if you succeeded in 222, you should be set, right? If you're new to it, you can look through this, but I've probably already talked to you about this. General policies and stuff. So this is worth spending a minute on. So as with last quarter, I'm not going to do a whole lot through email. I'll check emails basically once a day and respond to them, usually in the morning, like around office hours. Come to office hours or talk to me in class is the best way to interact with me. Make sure that whatever you turn in is your own code. Make sure you turn in your work on time. So programming assignments, if you're a minute late, you won't get a 0, okay? I'll let you go 24 hours late for a 25% deduction. But think of the deadline as very, very fixed and get your stuff turned in before the deadline. But if something happens and you miss it, you oversleep, you know, the power goes out at your house or something and you can't make that deadline, right? You can still turn it in, you only lose 25%. But since we're all in love with Git at this point, right? You know, hopefully you're pushing your code over as you're working on it. And, you know, if you totally space out and you don't submit, you know, Thursday night, you've got most of your code in there anyway. Don't miss the midterm or final. We'll talk about that during the midterm and final, but, you know, got to mention that early. This is a bit of a change. So in 224 and to some degree in 222, I was willing to help you get as many points as possible. Meaning if you turned in your code and, you know, at the last minute before you turned it in, you added your name to the beginning and you only typed 1/ instead of 2, and now your program does not compile, right? Instead of just giving you a 0, I would actually go through your code and I'd say, oh, you know, you forgot a second slash there. I'd put it in and I'd recompile your program so that I could grade the rest of it. And I take off some points for, you know, does not compile. I'm not going to do that in this course for the most part. Okay, I'm going to take your code as you submit it. I'm going to compile it, I'm going to run it, and you're going to get graded on that. So you really, really want to get good at making sure that after you've submitted everything, you pull it back down, you rebuild your executable, you run it, and you make sure that it works. Okay? And this is, again, you know, looking towards moving to a university, typically next year for most people, where the TAs are not going to, you know, fix syntax errors in your code so that they can compile it and test it. So you want to make sure that what you've submitted is, you know, what you want to have graded. Keep up the good habits with commenting, indenting, coding style, all that kind of stuff. So nothing too startling there. All right. Quick reminder / information for people who are new. I do record the lectures, and I post the lecture videos on YouTube. You can link to them through here. You can also link through to lecture topics, and get a tag list of everything. This goes oldest to newest, but you know, there's the topics that we went through in the morning 223 class, right? So if you go to that video, it'll have clickable links for each of those time indexes. I do not, you know, put on what I post on YouTube is basically what you're seeing on the shared screen right now, right? So whatever you're seeing, that's what goes in the video. So the chat window and the list of participants and all of that stuff is on a separate window that does not show up. The one possible privacy concern is if you use your microphone to ask a question, for example, your voice may be recorded. If that's a problem, let me know, and you can either, you know, send me a chat message and say, hey, can you turn off the microphone so I can ask a question, and so on, or, you know, just ask a question in chat, and so on and so forth, and I might, you know, repeat your question, but I won't name your name, and so on. So if you have any concerns about any of that, let me know. Otherwise, you know, these videos are on YouTube, they're publicly available, and they're indexed through here. All right, quick start guide. If you weren't in 224 or 222, this will tell you how to get onto the Linux server, what the server name is, what your default login and password is. I think we only have one person who's new this quarter, and you've already logged in successfully, so I don't think this is an issue. But if you need, you know, quick start refreshers, you can find it there. Here's a video version of it, and here's a video quick intro to Git, and we'll go through Git in a few minutes. Cool. All right. If we have interesting things that are developed in class code-wise, I'll post them on the server, and there's a quick link to a list of files here. And this is a link to Oracle's Java class library documentation. So this has got everything that you would need to know about Java, but it's huge, right? So once you know how to work through this, it's pretty quick and painless, but you know, it's not a good way to learn Java. All right, so any questions about any of that? That's like administrative details and stuff like that. Any issues, concerns, questions? All right, cool. Quick comment about this class versus 222. So 222 is the prereq for this course. And you've probably heard me say 222 is the most difficult course in the sequence. And I think that's true, but I mean that in the sense that you know, we get into some programming in 120, and you get into 121, and you learn more programming, but it's sort of a gradual ramp up. And 224, you know, is a more a deeper version of C, where we go more into some of the nitty gritties, and we get more into Unix and so on. But then 222 is like boom, right? we really hit the ground running in like week one. We're using C as a tool to learn these things called data structures. Um, and so it's sort of the most severe ramp up in intensity, and that's the sense in which I find most students think that that's the most difficult course. 223 is different though, right? 223 is challenging because it's a new language, Java. It's a new paradigm, which is object-oriented programming, new compared to C, and the projects are a lot bigger, right? So we're going to make larger programs in here that do more things and have more pieces. So we're really going to want to get good at taking a large problem, breaking it down into smaller pieces, doing those small pieces, testing them, developing them, putting them together. And this means, more planning up front, more thinking about what are the logical pieces of this assignment, and how will they communicate with one another, and what are our variables or our objects going to look like. And so sort of figuring out these things ahead of time, which really means you can't sit down the night before and just start writing code, right? To whatever degree you could not do that before, you can do it even less here, unless that's how your brain works. So we're going to want to start on projects early, spend a lot more time planning before we actually start writing code. And this works really well with the whole kind of object-oriented mindset. And the other difference, is we're working in Java. 222 was really done in C. And making these lists of differences and comparisons, I don't think there's necessarily a lot of value in that, because we'll develop this list in our mind as we learn more about Java. But just to kind of give you some upfront ideas on C versus Java. C is 1970s. I honestly don't know when Java came out, but it was certainly later than that. I'm thinking 90s or 2000s. I really don't remember. But I'll just say more modern. It's a newer language, but it's very C-like. 90s. All right, cool. Thank you. A more significant difference, though. C is compiled. So what does that mean? We say GCC, filename.c, and GCC is a program that reads that C source code, looks at it, and turns it into ones and zeros. And those ones and zeros are ingestible by the hardware in your machine, by your CPU. Java, on the other hand, it is compiled. Your Java program gets turned into ones and zeros, something called bytecode, but that bytecode does not run on your CPU. It's actually interpreted. And it's interpreted by something called the Java virtual machine, which is the JVM. So it's like a virtualization, right? We have our CPU, the actual hardware, and running on that is this thing called a JVM. It's a program. And what that program's doing is it's reading bytecode, compiled Java code, and interpreting it. Okay, why do we do that? Because, there's a speed penalty there. This is slower than C. But it's also highly portable. See, the bytecode is the same no matter what your JVM is running on. I can compile my Java program, and I can take the compiled code, which is called a class file, and I can copy that over to a totally different machine, and I can run it on that machine, and it's guaranteed to still work. And it doesn't matter what the hardware of that machine is, because the hardware is not eating the bytecode, the JVM is. On the other hand, if I make a C program and I compile it on my laptop, which is an x86, and then I copy that a dot out to my Raspberry Pi, and I say a dot out, I'm going to get an error. Because the CPU on my Raspberry Pi does not understand the same ones and zeros that my x86 processor does. So we pay a bit of a penalty in performance. The performance penalty is pretty small these days, but we get this huge benefit of portability. We also get a boost for security. I'm not going to say it's secure, but it's more secure. We have the ability to sort of sandbox things. Again, because we're not writing ones and zeros that go directly to the CPU. We're writing ones and zeros that are interpreted by this machine. And if we control the bounds of what this JVM can do, we can control what this person's ones and zeros can do. So these are some of the reasons why we're willing to pay this penalty of speed, portability, and security. Portability means you can take the compiled code and run it on a different machine. So I live in a Linux world, right? But I write code that I make publicly available for other people. Well, a lot of people still use Windows. So I write a piece of code and I put it up on a website and somebody downloads it. If it's written in Java, they can download it to their Windows machine and still run it. And it'll still work the way that I intended it to work. If I post something that I GCC'd for my Linux machine and they download it and try to run it, they're going to get an error message. Or if I write a piece of software under Windows and I put the .exe file and someone downloads it to their Unix machine and tries to run it, they'll get an error message. Alright, so someone says this is important because I'm coding for a mobile device. So Android in particular is Java, right? And so if you know Java, you know the language for Android developments. There's also Kotlin, which is like Java, but it's got some extra stuff to it. But yeah, so what he said. But Java and Android work really well with each other. And Java, Kotlin, they're portable, right? So same idea. I started to like Kotlin a little bit. I mean, it loosens up some things, which can be really nice. But I gotta admit, when I went back to Java, it was a bit of a sigh of relief in my brain. But that's just old habits. All right. So the other thing, and this is probably the main difference between C and Java, right? Java is object-oriented. I don't know what the single word would be for not object-oriented, but you know, not object-oriented. And this is the main reason we're studying Java here, because this is a paradigm that's very popular for what we do with computers today. And it's a different mindset, and it will feel different after, you know, a more procedural language like C. But once you get into this mindset, it starts to look like the only reasonable way to code, right? At least to me and a lot of other people. It'll take a little work to get there maybe, but it's totally worth it. And this, once you understand objects and you know how to use objects and how to pull them out of classes and stuff, it just gets super fun. And it's really good for code reuse, and so on and so forth. Yeah, Minecraft and Java, totally. I mean, Minecraft is written in Java, and that's a good thing. All right, so let's talk about GitLab and such. And again, if you've done this in 222, you're ahead of the curve. If you're new here, if you know nothing about Git, take a look at the video on Canvas and then send me an email. If you're familiar with Git, take a look at the requirements on the PA and send me an email if you're unsure. And definitely send me an email and let me know your ID on GitLab, because I need that to download your repositories. But let's go through a bit of how Git works. So I'm going to make a directory called 223 stuff. And you can set up your repositories however you want. You can set up your directory structure however you want. This is just an example. So suppose I'm taking this class. I want all my 223 stuff in one place. So I'm going to make this separate directory called 223 stuff. Now I'm doing this on my laptop. You could do this on the Linux server as well. You can keep them in sync with each other and so on. But depending on your environment, at the very least you want your own space where you're going to do 223. And maybe I'll put a README in here. All right, so I want to put this under Git control. So I'm going to do git init. I'm going to do git add README. I'm going to do git commit. All right, and then we got to do this one-time thing. And for this quarter, you only have to do this one time. I want to link this to a repository on GitLab. Okay, if you don't have a GitLab account, you need to get yourself a GitLab account. You want to set up an SSH handshake, and there's info in that quick start guide on how to do this. But if you've already set that up, you do this one time. Git remote add origin, git at gitlab.com, your GitLab ID, and then the name of the repository. All right, so so let me pull up. All right, 223. So programming assignment A. All right, so we'll go through the code for this in a minute, but let's look at the Git side of submitting this. So submit your code as a subdirectory named PA in your Git repository. Your Git repository is CSE222B submissions. Okay, this is also on that important course policies page. So CSE222B submissions, that's the name of your Git repository. So your one-time setup is this, right? Make your Git directory. Git remote add origin, git at gitlab.com, user ID / CSE222B submissions .git. And then git push origin master. All right, that sets up your connection between what you're doing on Git in your local system and your repository on GitLab. All right. So, so this says that this assignment should be done in a subdirectory named PA-A. Okay, PA1 will be in a different subdirectory. So you don't put all your files in a single directory. Make a subdirectory for each one. This one is called PA-A. So I'm going to do make dir PA-A and go into current directory PA-A. This is where I'm going to do my first programming assignment. All right, so your first assignment is going to be a file called pa0.java. So, I don't know Java yet, so I'm just going to write something like that. So how do I put this into Git? 3 steps. Git add pa0.java, git commit, and then git push origin master. All right, and that's it. My repository is now pushed over to GitLab. And when I make changes to this, I'll make my changes, and then I'll say git add, git push, git commit, git push. All right, the first time you do this, remember you have to hop over to GitLab and add me as a reporter. So let's see. Oh, I closed my window where I do that. Let's see if I can still get in. Alright, so hop over to GitLab and go into your project and go to settings and come down to visibility, project features. No. Alright, it's been a few weeks since I did this. Oh, okay, yeah. Alright, so no, I don't want to change visibility. I want to change members. Yeah, I'm trying to add members. Oh, thank you. Okay, click on members and then come down here and look for Nick Macias. And that's the one. Add me and add me as a reporter. And then say invite. Okay, so that's a one-time setup. Thank you. Alright, so you're not creating a repository within a repository. You have a single repository for the entire course. That's CSE223 submissions, right? What I'm doing is I'm making a series of directories. So there's my PA-A. I'm going to do a PA-1 eventually when I start programming assignment 1. Right, and I'll add some stuff. And so on. So what this means is that if I go to my my project over on GitLab, right, I'll see a PA1 directory, I'll see a PAA directory, and so on. Log out of the Unix server, just, yeah, there you go, exit or Control D. Alright, so that's the Git part of it. If there's any questions about that, let me know. But set that up today, push your PAA over, and if you want, send me an email today and ask me to check accessibility, and I'll try downloading the repo to make sure it's available. And again, once you set this up once, it should be set for the entire quarter. You'll just keep making new directories, pushing stuff over, but it'll all be under the same repository. So you don't have to keep making new repos, adding new origins, adding me as a reporter, and so on and so forth. So let's talk about the actual PA0, okay? So this is a hello world. And here's the code you're going to use, okay? It's you know, one actual line of Java and then some other stuff. And we'll spend the next few weeks learning what all of this means. But, you know, public says this class is available from outside of this file. Class is a keyword. It's kind of like a structure statement in C, but it's a little more. And PA0 is what I'm calling this class. And because I'm calling this class PA0, it has to go in a file named PA0.java. And unlike C, file names and file extensions are very important. Okay, so if I'm making a file for a class PA0, that file has to be pa0.java. And then the main program declaration is public static void main parentheses string bracket bracket args. And this is the one line of executable code. And instead of printf, we say system out print line, and we're just going to print out, you know, hello. And curly brackets because we like curly brackets, and so on and so forth. Let's see. Chat window remote origin already exists. So I think you, yeah, talk to me after class. We'll square that away because I think you already linked it up once. All right, let's go into PAA and let's write our actual PA0.java. So, and you can take this straight from the assignment. All right, so there's our program, and it's just a plain file, right? It's just pa0.java. You can cat it, and so on and so forth. We compile it just like we compile C programs, where we use a different command. To compile a Java program, the command is javac, and we have to do pa0, and we have to list the .java extension. When we compile it, if we had any errors, we would see error messages here. No messages, no errors. But what it's done is it's created a bunch of ones and zeros, and it's a file called pa0.class. And if we look in there, it's mostly not useful information for us. It's binary with some, you know, printable text here and there. But it's ones and zeros that the Java virtual machine will understand. So how do we feed this to the JVM? The command is Java. So if I say Java, and then I just say the name of the class file, pa0, that executes it. And so now we're good to go. I can go ahead and add those things. I can git commit. I can put a comment saying I'm finished. And git push origin master. And I'm done with PAA. Alright, so that's what you want to get done by Wednesday morning. But try to do it today, so that if it's not working, you can come by office hours tomorrow, right? And if it doesn't get done tomorrow, you can come by office hours Wednesday, right? But then it's going to be late. So so try to do this today, and if there's any issues, come by tomorrow and ask in office. And if it doesn't get resolved there, we can talk about it in class and so on. But this is basically our development chain, right? Java C to compile, Java to execute. All right, so questions about any of that? So tomorrow we'll start talking about Java itself, and we'll talk about some things like bracket bracket, which is an array, and the word string, which is a class of strings. Yeah, I'll email you the PDF right after class. All right, cool. So we'll start digging into the language tomorrow, and we'll be off and running. Have a great afternoon. I will compile your classes myself, but if you submit the class file, that is fine, because I want you to you know, get in the habit of pushing things over to Git, and I don't want you to worry about pushing too many things over. So I'll ignore everything in your repo that's not, you know, the Java files that you're supposed to be submitting. I'll just ignore the rest. So you're free to push over whatever is in there. All right, cool. That's all I got. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you all next time.